Good morning, everyone. How's it going out there? Welcome back here to a Tuesday, 11/11/2025, 11:13 a.m. California time here. Latest activity on the earthquake 3D globe shows a 3.6, hiding out here somewhere in the green flag. A lot of earthquake activity ramping up. Looks like maybe down across the South America area. We'll get to the latest quake activity here in a second. I want to show you guys what's going on here on the sun. We got a pretty big deal going on here for the Aurora potential tomorrow night, tonight and tomorrow night. Earlier today, we had the 6th strongest solar flare in this solar cycle. Look at that beauty. That's the third one here, third X flare in the last 3 days. But this here, the strongest flare in quite a while, and it ties, well, it doesn't tie, but it's the 6th strongest flare of solar cycle 25 here. We go over and check out the flares here, the top solar flares of solar cycle 25. So far, last year, the one back in October 3rd, last year, the X 9.0 was the largest. Today's event, look at that, X 5.1 from 4274. I've been chatting about that sunspot for a while, how it's a monster of a sunspot, super complex, still has potential to see even stronger flares. And the only bad thing is that it's currently facing the planet. Yeah, so 11/11, that's when that X 5.1 struck. Let's talk about the effects of that now. We're still getting slammed by protons. These are charged protons from the recent strong flares just bombarding the planet, hitting the ionosphere, and creating these radio blackouts at the higher levels, the upper latitude levels there. Now, most of the time when this happens, it can affect the high-frequency communication and low-frequency navigation systems there across this area, mainly in the red zone. Now, this is not Aurora activity. This is different. The Aurora activity not showing up here yet, but it will later on this evening. Here's the detailed forecast. Now, these guys showing a G3 class storm. A G4 is forecasted here. I know Kevin has not upgraded this yet, so if we're going to go over to the official site from the Electronic Power Community Dashboard. That's the Space Weather Prediction Center, NOAA.gov. Look at that, G4 class storm coming up. That's one step above the level we were talking about last night, how we're expecting a G3 storm tonight. And this one is a quick mover. It's going to combine with a number of CMEs that have been shot off in this direction of the planet, and probably stir up a lot of Aurora activity, even maybe down into Northern California, Nevada. Some of the maybe some of the lower latitudes could see it. This is very similar to what we've seen back in May of last year. None of this happened here. These are just potential impacts, geomagnetic storm impacts from a G4 severe storm. Power systems, it could be some widespread voltage control problems, and some protective systems could trip out from the grid. We could see that. And then, of course, there's other stuff that needs to be taken care of as far as spacecraft adjustments and whatnot, satellite adjustments, but not the end of the world. In fact, back in May of last year, we had that G5 storm, which is even a step up higher from the G4. And we didn't see anything major going on, as far as any major grid activity going down. We've seen the auroras there in Northern California. It's quite spectacular. Now, I did not mean to do that. I want to go back here to the this model right here and see if this has been updated, which it looks like it has. Now, take a look at this. The sun there in the yellow, Earth in the green. Double check, make sure the bells are off so I don't have to repeat myself here a number of times. There's been a number of CMEs that have blasted off here from the sun. There's one. There's going to be another one behind that. That was the X flare. And then this is the quick mover right there behind that. We're talking about 3 massive CMEs that are coming to the planet. The last one there from the X 5.1 that happened today is a super quick mover and is going to be trying to catch up here with the previous 2. And that's going to create, kind of like a massive cannibal type CME there with super dense plasma, but check out the speed on this. 1600. Hello. I don't recall the last time I seen something stir up that high. You guys see that? So that third CME is going to come super quick, but at a time where we're already getting bombarded by the previous two CMEs affecting the planet there. That is very interesting. I want to see what the Aurora activity looks like in the next couple nights. Unfortunately, here along the West Coast, we have a big storm system coming in, so I am unfortunately going to be out of the loop. But, man, we're going to be watching that closely there because that is an incredible amount of high-speed charged solar wind that's going to be coming at us with that 3 CMEs. That's crazy, incredible. So, Kevin, I'm sure we'll update it. The detailed forecast not updated for the G4 storm. This is just G3, G2 for tomorrow night. But tonight could be good. Remember, we have a series of CMEs coming at us. And the third one there is going to really ramp up and try to catch up with the other two. And that's when we're going to see that massive elevated 1600 wind speed. Crazy. G4 class storm. And this could be eerily similar to what happened back in May there when we had the Auroras down in Northern California. We've seen a very similar event. If not, this may be a little bit bigger than those events that happened back in May of last year. All right, so the X flare activity, there it is right there, X 5.1. This is just an image there that Kevin's got there on his YouTube channel. He does have a YouTube channel there. You just click on that and it'll take you to his site, I believe. What's going on here with the taskbar? It wants to stay open for some reason, but okay. So let's talk about the Sunspot that produced the X 5.1. Latest imagery here. We'll pull this up from the Stanford Educational Department there. Still massive, still complex here. I've been talking about this last couple days here, and it's still looking pretty fancy in terms of maybe producing another strong X flare. But it's scooting over there across the western limb quite rapidly, so we'll see what it does in the next couple days before it disappears off here on the western limb, because behind this there's not a whole lot of activity. But man, while this has been facing the planet, we've been definitely looking at a number of X flares, massive proton events, and now coming up a huge CME, 3 CMEs all into one big giant present. We'll see what it does. Definitely see what happens here. There it is, X 5.1. Crazy amount of solar weather activity. Kevin's pretty busy out here with his page. I think by tonight he'll have the updated detailed forecast here. Let me see that time frame when that's going to hit us. That's going to be at, so the peak of that third one is what I'm watching, right? When the wind speed really ramps up there at around 1600 or so. Or what is that? That's up around 1400, almost 1600. That's crazy. Earth getting more than stereo A, it looks like. All right, but this is going to be at 1700 Z time on the 12th, okay? So the current Z time is the 11th. So the 12th tomorrow, that may not be favorable. That's going to be like 6 hours or so. That's going to be just as it's starting to get light here. May not be favorable. It could arrive sooner for the North American side, but man, if you happen to be on the opposite side of North American plate, Europe, Asia area, Russia region, you should see some decent auroras there. But this is going to be coming in at a kind of a bad time. Now the density there, that from the first or the two, there's going to be 2 there, slamming in, major plasma density. Speed up there as well, but not double like it will be once the third CME comes in. Now that's at 1400 Z time. Oh, excuse me, I take that back. That's 0400. So that will be favorable for aurora conditions here across the North American side. and that's going to be tonight after dark for this. For that density, that plasma density there. Pretty good spike, but it's just some hours later there where the high-speed solar wind stream kicks up. 1700 UTC time. So that would technically be tomorrow morning. Hey, but either way, man, after dark tonight, we got a decent shot of seeing the auroras. Something unlike what similar to what we've seen back in May of last year. And we don't get these events very often. So if you are an Aurora fan, want to see the northern lights and you got clear skies, I think it will be favorable for Aurora viewing tonight. Let's check out and see what we got for the cloud viewing forecast out here. Let's just go with clouds in general. We got a lot of high clouds out here right now in Northern California. Later tonight, around 9 p.m. or so, maybe some breaks in the clouds out here across the West Coast. Maybe some around Chico. I'll have to keep my eyes open. We got that big storm brewing offshore there. It's going to bring us quite a bit of rain. Washington, Oregon, not so much. Maybe parts of Montana, the Dakotas, but wide open over here across this area of the country down into Texas. If it is similar to what we've seen back in May of last year, you'll see it there in Texas, maybe even down into Florida. That kicked up into a G5 class storm when it really was only forecasted for a G3. So we're forecasting a G4 storm, and the way things are coming in, like a freight train, it could really stir up there and potentially reach G5 storming levels tonight, which would be quite viewable down there across some of the lower states. Northeast, not so much. A lot of cloud cover up into Canada. Alaska got partial clearing skies, but I guess we'll see what happens here tonight. We'll definitely be watching that. Kind of a big deal. Definitely a big deal there with that massive X-flare. All right, let's see what we got for earthquake activity coming up here. Anything major going on? As far as the largest quake, let's see what we got here. Today, after midnight, it's just going to be a 4.8 down here across the Chile area. Getting a pretty good cluster of activity down there in the Peru-Chile Trench. There's a number of quakes there. Nothing big, but we do have a little swarming going on there. It looks like around the center portion of the Peru-Chile Trench. As far as the West Coast goes, let's go ahead and check this out. Yellowstone up here. Looks like they're having another earthquake. 2.1 around Mammoth. Been quite active out here in the last week or so with about 62 earthquakes, including a couple threes out here. A 3.2 and a 3.1. If we go back the previous week, we had a 3.7 out here. So things are starting to stir up out there across Yellowstone National Park. Let's give a quick glance at the Yellowstone recorded seismogram so we can see if there's maybe something going on that's not being reported. Not really. Actually, it looks like they're reporting the majority of the quakes out here. This seismogram, digital one, is really close to the epicenter of the earthquake activity that I was mentioning. A couple earthquakes there from yesterday. There's that one this morning. About 11 something or so. Well, let's see, when was this one? Yeah, 10:26. So that just dropped off the map here. About ready to drop off. It should have dropped off by now. 10:26, 11:27. With a quick refresh, it probably does, right? Yes, it does. But nothing big going on there, folks, for now across the Yellowstone area. Up into Washington, a handful of earthquakes out there around Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier up there. We got a couple earthquakes showing up here. These are from yesterday, a couple newer ones up north. I don't see anything major going on there for now. One earthquake there off the Blanco fracture zone, a 3.1. This has been another area of a lot of earthquake activity here recently. If we go back the last 30 days, you can see the majority of the quake activity here. We're working this way down across the Blanco fracture zone. That ultimately will apply further strain out here, push this region underneath the North America plate. You get these Gorda ridges here. This is a spreading seafloor center, creating new seafloor, but also at the same time really jamming this up down here as well. So there's a couple different factors at play when you're talking about the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. I believe this accumulates more strain and stress compared to the entirety there of the Cascadia, which results in a little bit slower slip up north. This one here, though, can see we can get partial ruptures of the Cascadia, which would be this section down here, the southern end, due to the accumulated slip that happens here more often than the entirety. And we have yet to have one. I chat about this a lot here. If you haven't seen one of those videos, maybe I'll cover this a little bit more in detail tonight. But activity stirring up across the Blanco fracture zone has increased the tremor counts out here. Let me show you guys the Cascadia tremor. Slow slip events here from yesterday down there in the southern end. There's the Blanco fracture zone right here. We can pull up the... This will work a little bit better. That's a nice view of the fractures out there. Gorda ridges. So, yeah, strike slip boundary, ultimately applying further strain out here in this area. That has increased the tremor counts out here in the last week since those earthquakes occurred there within the last week or so. Resulting in, what have we got for a total? 1,030 epicenters of tremor, slow slip events there. Mainly across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. So that's always a concern here, that we could be looking at a partial rupture. The bigger nightmare scenario would, of course, be a full rupture. But the southern end does have these intervals there of partial ruptures. I'm going to show you guys real quick, okay? I want to show you the map. And just show you guys here real quick what I mean by partial ruptures. Here we are at today. Our last big event was back in 1700, so we're looking at 325 years ago. But notice in between all of these major events, right, except for the 1700 to the 1460 AD one, those were both full ruptures. But all the other ones, you have these little partial ruptures here. See these little smaller events resulting in a smaller rupture length? This was an 8.1 for a partial rupture. And then a short time later, we had a full rupture. This was a 8.3 partial rupture. And then a couple hundred years later, then we had the full rupture. But if you go back and look at this time frame here, we didn't get a partial rupture last time between 1468 to 1700. So more than likely that should come to play, or it could even be a full rupture. You know, they go down there to the ocean floor and look at stuff. These geologists are pretty smart and they know what they're looking for. They go out and check out soil samples at more than, this one shows 50 undersea sites between Washington, Oregon, and California. And they can see these turbidites, I believe they're called, how they get disrupted when there's a big event happening. And this is how the timeline comes up here. But we could be seeing a partial rupture out here. Just got to be prepared. Worst case scenario, full rupture. So either way, you know, this is pretty well locked and full of energy. The Bay Area today, as far as any more earthquake activity on the Calaveras Fault, it looks like there's been two of them, a 1.5 and a 1.4. That brings up the total tally there with this swarm, about 57 earthquakes, the largest being a 3.8. Nothing big going on there for now, but you know, when an active fault like that sees a little swarm, you have to really be on guard, because those could easily be foreshocks, and they still might. I've seen scenarios here where we had a swarm like that, and then a couple days later there's a big event, big earthquake. So we do have to be prepared. There's so much that is locked and ready to produce a big earthquake out here along the West Coast. It's unreal. So much time has passed out here. We've been living on a lot of borrowed time here recently. Southern California, not so much going on. Nothing really today as far as 2.5 and above. All small microquake activity. Nothing new there across the oil fields of Texas. One earthquake way up in the New Hampshire area outside of Concord. 5:55 in the morning for a 1.9. Not a big earthquake, but this area can get some big earthquakes. Who would have thought, right? Big earthquakes have historically happened in this area. It's been quite a while, hundreds of years if I recall, but it can happen again. With the amount of time that has passed, that could very well be coming up here in the future. Near future. not fearmonger, and just stating the cold, hard historical facts. All right, so let's look at the earthquake 3D globe, see if we got anything else going on besides the Chile area. A lot of older movement there from Turkey yesterday, some newer activity north of Iceland. Afghanistan, a 4.6, it looks like. Nothing major going on here across the Nankai Trough. I do see a newer quake further down south here, 3.7. So that means that the strain is on out here. Nothing major going on across the Nankai Trough yet, but that's another area that's got some mega quake potential. Philippines area fairly active today with some 4s. Nothing big, but just be prepared. Some more deep activity here across the Tonga Trench. And, you know, if you look at the way the Earth is getting hammered right now by multiple sources from the sun, I do expect some larger earthquake activity to result in from all of this. If it doesn't, I'd be very surprised. You know, we're looking at major events happening left and right now the earthquake activity in general, you know, the largest one after midnight so far is the bring this up here. That's going to be that 4.8 at 2 o'clock in the morning. So that was some time ago. We don't even have a 5-pointer out here today. This was from yesterday, that 5-pointer. And normally 5-pointers, there's a couple of them. So if it remains quiet like this in earthquake activity for the next couple days while we're getting bombarded with all this stuff from the sun, then I would say that's a big flop, you know, when it comes to the space-weather relationship here. Now the coronal holes are a little bit something, they're a little different. Those things shoot out magnetic lines straight out from the sun directly into space and whatever it's facing. But it's too early to call. Let's give this some time to work with and see what happens here in the next couple days while we're getting bombarded with major protons. We're going to get slammed by a massive CME that's coming in at about 1,600 kms. That's crazy. That's well above your typical CMEs coming in. And then on top of that, you know, we got 3 coming in basically all at once with a whopper in the end. So this could be a very big deal tonight when it comes to the roar activity. But is it going to be a big deal with earthquake activity? Are we going to see a bigger quake? Let's see what happens, right? All right, so we'll cover this a little bit later on this evening. Right now, the BTBZ component is northward point. Last night, when there wasn't a whole lot going on, we had a southward pointing BZ component, but nothing has hit us yet. That will come in a little bit later on this evening. We'll see that density rise up. It should spike up pretty good, and then of course the high-speed solar wind stream. Right now we're very minimal, but when this all comes in at once, I guarantee you we're going to see a shock, kind of like a shock wave here to the planet, the magnetosphere, and we'll see what happens with earthquake activity from that. Storm Prediction Center for severe weather, pretty clear. Just some thunderstorm activity out there associated with the low pressure coming in to my neck of the woods here in Northern California. Let me show you guys here real quick. The GFS model run still on tap here to see some sufficient moisture across the Northern California and Bay Area. Southern California going to get involved as well. In fact, man, look at that. That cutoff low bringing in that atmospheric river. Going to drench the Southern California area, it looks like. So pretty impressive rainfall totals will result from that. Another storm behind that, it looks like, for the weekend, early next week. For the West Coast. Same scenario there for Southern California. See that? There's the first one, cut off low, looping around there, Southern California, and then another one comes behind that, cut off low, looping in the same area. You don't see that very often. And then after that, we'll have to see what happens here. Looks like some major cold air coming in for the eastern portion of the country. Well, that's towards the end of November, so we'll definitely keep checking back on that. The total accumulated precipitation runs out here. As you can see, California going to get some decent moisture from these storms coming up, resulting in inches of rain, snow measured in the feet up there in the Sierra Nevada range. So this is good news for California. We're going to get some decent precipitation and a good snowpack going this early in the season. That's very good. We weren't even anywhere near this last year. All right, seismograph stations here. One earthquake on the Anza station and one also on the Yellowstone station there as well. So just be prepared, folks. You know me, when it comes to watching this space weather activity and the relationship between the two, like I say, if we have the next couple days of very quiet earthquake activity and we're getting bombarded like this, you know, really, what's one to think? It shouldn't take a week for us to feel the effects of this. We're getting slammed right now. The magnetosphere is getting slammed, and it will be later tonight as well. So let's just see what happens before I make any decision on you know, the space weather earthquake relationship between flaring, CMEs, and proton events. I'm pretty certain, not all the way certain though, with coronal hole activity. This is a different story. When these are facing us, like this one we had last month, or 2 months ago. This one's still old. This was a massive one facing us. I believe we had some decent earthquake uptick. The magnetic lines from a coronal hole shoot directly out from the sun. That may play a better part in producing earthquake activity, but it's still too early to make a definite decision on that. But let's see what happens tonight. Have a good one. We'll see you guys out here a little bit later on this evening, unless something major happens. Stay prepared.